All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to break down a really specific and, kind of provocative theory about attraction and communication. In this explainer, we'll walk through the core ideas from the source material about how to create curiosity and, yes, a little bit of tension. So, right off the bat, the source hits us with this pretty bold claim. I mean, this flies directly in the face of what we're usually told, right? The whole idea that being a complete open book is how you build a real connection. Well, this theory suggests maybe not. In fact, maybe the exact opposite. And that leads us to what the source calls the oversharing paradox. It's this weird tug of war, you know? On one side, we have this very human desire to share things and connect with people. But on the other, you have what the source calls the basic mechanics of primal attraction. And according to this, those two things can sometimes be at odds.
Okay, so this is really the foundation of the entire theory. The source is asking, is attraction a logical decision? You know, like a pros and cons list for a person? It argues, no way. It's not logical at all. It's primal. It's driven by feelings. Things like tension, a little bit of uncertainty, and a genuine curiosity to figure someone out.
And this really gets to the heart of it. The idea here is that if you do a life story dump, tell them everything all at once, you've basically closed the book. There are no more pages for them to turn, no more layers to peel back. And if there's nothing left to discover, that curiosity that really fuels the initial spark, well, according to this theory, it just fizzles out. So if oversharing is the problem, then what's the solution they're proposing? Well, the source puts forward this whole framework it calls the art of mystery, and it's all about building a totally different kind of connection based on curiosity and tension. The central metaphor they use for this is pretty cool. Emotional caffeine. The idea isn't to be deceptive or dishonest. It's more about giving out these small, stimulating doses of who you are, just enough to keep the other person engaged, alert, and wanting another sip, so to speak. This slide lays out the two paths really clearly. On one side, you've got the logical connection. According to this theory, that's built on just sharing everything, and it often leads you straight into the friend zone. Then, on the other side, you have primal attraction. This requires that mystery and tension to maintain what they call romantic polarity. It's kind of presented as the friend zone filter. Okay, so much for the theory. How does any of this apply to how we actually communicate? This part gets into the practical stuff, the specific habits for what you say, and just as important, what the source says you shouldn't say. Now, this is a big one. It's all about getting comfortable with silence. The source contrasts what it calls the loud guy, who's always talking and basically performing for approval, with the grounded guy. He's perfectly fine with quiet. That silence is framed as a form of confidence, and it actually makes other people lean in and wonder what's going on in his head. Now, let's talk about texting, because the source has some very clear rules here. The main point is that texting is for amplifying a vibe, not for dumping information. So you want to avoid those long diary entry style texts. Keep it short, spark some wonder. And a big one, don't reply instantly. It shows you have your own life, your own momentum. The whole goal is to make them wonder. Okay, so moving on from what you say in text, let's talk about the internal mindset behind all this. This section is all about what the source calls the masculine frame, which is really just a concept about self-possession and being psychologically stable. The thinking goes like this. If you're constantly over-explaining your decisions or your feelings, it can come across like you're looking for approval. It signals that you're not really sure of yourself. But according to the source, a confident person just states their position and that's it. That projects stability, and that stability is presented as a very attractive quality. So here's a concrete example the source gives. They call it the spine test. Let's say she says something like, "Ugh, I hate that movie." The approval-seeking response is to immediately fold and say, "Yeah, me too," just to be liked. But the masculine frame response is to respectfully hold your ground, showing that you have your own opinions and you're not a pushover. And this quote just perfectly captures that core attitude. It's all about projecting this energy of self-validation. The idea is that your sense of worth isn't up for grabs. It doesn't depend on whether someone else approves of you or not. You've already approved of yourself. And that brings us to the final and definitely the most metaphorical part of this whole theory. We're kind of moving away from specific tactics now and into a much broader philosophy for how to live your life. So the source uses this central metaphor, the moth versus the flame. The moth is described as someone without their own purpose, always chasing after things, chasing women, chasing validation. But the flame, well, the flame is a person who is deeply invested in their own mission, their career, their health, their goals. They don't have to chase, they naturally attract.
And right here, this is the core directive of the entire philosophy, all boiled down into one powerful line. It's presented as way more than just dating advice. It's a strategy for life. And the crucial point the source makes here is that this isn't about playing games. It's about genuine self-possession. A flame is powerful precisely because it's still, right? It has its own energy, its own light. The focus completely shifts from pursuing other people to building a life that is so compelling that others are just naturally drawn to you. And all of that leaves us with this final question. This theory we've just gone through, it walks a very fine line. Is this whole art of mystery thing just a calculated strategy to manipulate someone's emotions? Or is it actually a framework for building an unshakable sense of self-respect, where attraction just happens as a natural side effect? That's definitely something to think about.